Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my program. News summary from Moscow. Today is, of course, 10th of August. Now it's 3 p.m. Moscow time, middle of the day, and this is my second news update. Bigger than the first one that I published early in the morning, first on my Patreon and Boost pages, and little late on YouTube and Rumble. So, in case you watched that first update, stay online. I have a lot more updates on some major topics. And if you have not watched that first update, well, as a reminder that every morning from Monday to Friday, I plan to publish first news update, shorter one on Patreon and Boosty first, then on YouTube and Rumble, and at 3 p.m. main news update with much more reports, right? Okay, as always, you can initiate the friends. This is a live stream now on my YouTube and Rumble channels. I'm streaming simultaneously, so you can initiate during the live streams conversation about any topic you like. All is needed to send your question or commentary through support platforms, through PayPal or Boosty, and through super chat feature on Rumble. Of course, that in case if you simultaneously like to support my work, and I will do my best to react on your question or commentary and respond as informatively as I can. Yesterday, there was we had a good big community chat, dear friends, and unfortunately, I received messages a bit later about with the questions and the comments of members of our community on Boosty and PayPal, and I will highlight those comments and the questions after the news segment later on. Interesting comments and questions there for sure. So stay to the end there if you have a time, and that's it, I guess, right? I can launch a live stream, a new segment now. Just in case, I will drop a link to my Rumble channel in a YouTube chat. If you have your account there on Rumble, your friends, subscribe to my channel because you never know. YouTube might take down my channel anytime they want, literally anytime. I'm recently received a warning from them, so Rumble might become a major line of communication. So that's been said. Let's go for a new segment now, and well, I will start with the topic of escalation that Turkey initiated with the Russian Federation a few days ago, with a decision to restrict the passage of their ships directed towards Russian ports through Turkish-controlled Bosphorus and Dardanelles straits that connect Azov and the Black Sea with the Mediterranean. Of course, this move was clearly hostile towards Russia, 100%, and a part of pressure that globalists are trying to put on Russia now, to impose on Russian leadership in order to force Moscow's hands and ease the pressure on Western-backed Nazi and the terrorist regime in Ukraine. And first and foremost, this is related to later, recent activization of Russian militaries in terms of long-range strikes, in some cases massive long-range strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kyiv regime, energy infrastructure that is related to military activity, and also on portal infrastructure of Kyiv regime, which caused basically maritime blockade on a Ukrainian regime, to put it mildly, right? So, of course, this maritime blockade of Kyiv regime is a big headache now, massive headache for Kyiv regime itself and its NATO backers. They were hysterical for several weeks and were trying to push the idea of aerial ceasefire. It did not work. Moscow did not respond in kind. And now they choose other way, right, to put some more pressure on Moscow. Turkey is a British proxy, as you know, and a British ruling class is one of the major forces in a globalist club. So they try to use Ankara now, Turkish ruling class, and I think that's why That's why Ankara come up with this extremely hostile step towards Russia to closer straits for vessels that were directed to Russia. Of course, Ankara, some elements in Turkey are arguing that, well, this restriction was impacting the regime also. I mean, yeah, you can say that, but well, Russian military imposed quite a strict maritime blockade, and whatever vessels were attempting to enter ports in the Nikolaev region, Odessa region, were neutralized, right? So, therefore, if anything, this blockade, this decision of Ankara was definitely more harmful for Russia. It was clearly an attempt to put some pressure on Moscow. Simultaneously, when this news broke, we received information that I highlight in my previous updates that the regime somehow managed to purchase a lot of weapons in Turkey. Strike weapons, by the way, assault weapons, right? Among these weapons are 12 M270 launchers, HIMARS launchers, 70, by the way, 70 ATACMS ballistic missiles that are definitely not defensive weapons. So 70 ATACMS missiles, 2,524 M26 227 millimeter projectiles with their DPICM cluster warheads, and 47,000 M509A1 203 millimeter cluster artillery shells. So a lot of weapons were purchased by Ukraine, by the regime in Turkey, and this news broke simultaneously with this topic of some restrictions that Ankara was imposing on the navigation in Dardanelles and the Bosphore Straits, which definitely made Moscow even more frustrated with Ankara. Simultaneously, not surprisingly, by the way, Turkish leadership, Foreign Minister of Turkey, Fidan, come up with another initiative about maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea. You know, how convenient, isn't it? This air ceasefire topic didn't work. Globalists failed on that. And next step they took is to impose more pressure on Moscow, maritime blockade of sort, and then initiate talks about maritime ceasefire. Hopefully, Russian military sent clear enough message yesterday for Turkish leadership while conducting relatively large-scale, long-range precision strikes with dozens of missiles and strike drones on the portal infrastructure of the key regime in the Nikolaev and Odessa region, also on logistical infrastructure, on ground-based logistical infrastructure. I mean bridges, right? And hopefully nothing going to change. So Russia sent clear message, Russian military at least sent clear message that we are not interested in maritime ceasefires, right? And the naval blockade on Ukrainian Nazi and fascist regime gonna remain. And today, maybe because Ankara received their message loud and clear, we have this reporter that Turkey resumes Black Sea ship transits via Straits after delays. So Turkey has resumed their, and this is an update, by the way, big update, I will say, on this matter. Turkey has resumed their passage of ships in the Black Sea after delays for a number of vessels, according to Bloomberg, citing ship tracking data, and vessels that were heading towards Russian Novorossiysk, for example, are passing now through Dardanelles and Bosphorus, and will head towards the Russian territorial waters. But yet again, there might be, I mean, speculations are already out there on the internet that maybe some behind the closed door agreement have been reached, right? And that's why between Moscow and their globalists, let's say, and maybe that's why Ankara is restoring the navigation through straits that they control. This is a pure speculation. Because, if anything, yesterday Russian forces conducted long-range strikes on a logistical infrastructure of the key regime in Odessa region, right, and the Nikolaev region, including on the portal infrastructure. But neither yesterday, neither today, by the way, we have received any reports about vessels being struck, directed, that were moving either towards territorial waters of the so-called Ukraine or from those territorial waters out. And this nuance ignited the speculations that maybe Russian militaries and their security services receive order from Kremlin to de-escalate, right, on the high seas. I hope this is not true. But yet again, yesterday, no strikes on any vessel that were either heading towards Ukraine, Ukrainian ports, or out of those ports. And that might mean something, right? Maybe there is no more vessels that are moving around. Could be case, isn't it? But if there are vessels, but they're not being targeted, then that raises the question why and how this is possible. And the only logical answer in that case will be that Russian militaries received order from Kremlin not to target. And if so, then in next several days we will find out that maritime blockade is no longer in place. But as of now, this is all speculations. Maybe Ankara was contacted by Moscow, and Moscow explained that these games that Ankara initiated are going to be extremely harmful for Turkey. And who knows, maybe Moscow was clear enough in its message, and it has an effect on the Turkish leadership. Can that be the case? Maybe, we don't know. But neither yesterday, neither today, no vessels being struck by Russian forces that were either heading towards ports in Odessa and Nikolaev region or out of those ports. I don't know. I personally have no strong opinion yet on the matter, but would not be surprised at all if Kremlin actually ordered Russian militaries to ease the pressure on high seas, right? Hopefully this is not the case, but it would not surprise me at all. So Turkey is opening its straits again for Russia, let's say this way. And also we have this report from also Turkey in regards to these weapon sales that media is reporting for last several days, massive weapon sales that Turkey agreed on. And you know what the response is from Turkey? Turkish government has no information about the US State Department's intention to transfer American military systems to Ukraine via Turkey. Turkish government source stated. And by the way, you see how dodgy their answer or response from the Turkish side is. Reports in the media did not say that US is transferring US military equipment or military equipment of Pentagon from Turkey to Kiev-controlled territory. Media reports were that Ukraine purchased US-made weapons from Turkey. So it's Turkey itself that agreed to transfer these assault weapons, these thousands of pieces of weapons, cluster munition included, ATACMS missiles included, HIMARS launchers included. It's Turkey that agreed to sell these weapons, US-made weapons, to Kiev regime. And so this response from Ankara is, I don't know, man, are they trolling us all? Or what's going on? Because no one suggested that it's a Pentagon that is transferring its own weapons from Turkey to Ukraine. And the US State Department was very clear that they initiated talks in Congress on the matter because Congress authorizations is absolutely necessary whenever there is a resale is happening of US-made weapons, right? So if Turkey wants to sell US-made weaponry, they need to have a green light from the Washington. And that's why the State Department addressed the Congress on this matter on 3rd of August. So very dodgy response from a Turkish side, very dodgy response that does not really answer their questions. Source reported that Turkish authorities have no information about US State Department plans to supply weapons to Ukraine via Turkish territory. Deal concerns multi-launcher rocket systems, HIMARS basically, also ATACMS, ballistic missiles, and their cluster munition of different types. I hope Moscow will address this issue. By the way, you might be surprised, but neither yesterday, neither day before yesterday, since this news broke about Turkey selling these weapons to the regime, and neither today Russian media reported anything about a response from the Kremlin. I mean, this is strange, isn't it? This is strange. How come that Peskov, that loves to talk about anything, did not find the time to respond on this topic? And how come that these so-called journalists in the presidential pool, and I'm saying so-called journalists because none of them are actual journalists, but nevertheless, man, how come that none of them dare to ask question about the matter? And none of them reported. I'm telling you, Russian MSM is a garbage, man. Garbage, total freaking garbage. Maybe Russian so-called journalists are more educated than their Western counterparts, and they really are more educated. But when it comes to principles, journalistic principles, none of them have any. Neither here in Russia, neither out there in Europe or in the US. None of those so-called journalists in MSM have any integrity and journalistic principles. And when it comes to Turkey, by the way, I mean, we have to teach this terrorist regime in Ankara lesson. And hopefully time will come for that, because this response is a trolling of everybody and totally unacceptable, isn't it? What you will make of it? That, well, we don't know if State Department or US is planning to sell its weapons from Turkey via Turkey. It's not about US Pentagon's own weapons. It's about your weapons, Turkey, that you are selling to Ukrainian Nazis and fascists. That's what this topic is about. But Ankara is not willing to go into details on that. Anyways, we will find out. We will find out. But clearly, by the way, Turkey is being used again by globalists against Russia. And unfortunately, not the first time, Moscow's response is either very weak or there is no response whatsoever, which is insane, which is just freaking insane, by the way. But that's where we are, believe it or not. Maybe foreign ministry will say something about it. I don't know. Could be case. But of course, I will monitor the situation, by the way. I will monitor the situation on this matter. If any updates, I will share new data in my next programs. Now, let's continue with some other news. Well, of course, Russian militaries continue long-range strikes on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kyiv regime. Maybe vessels have not been targeted because there were no reports, not a single report about it in past 48 hours. But on the ground itself, Russian militaries continue to eliminate military capabilities of Kyiv regime. We have reports that in the Zaporozhye region, for example, another enterprises that was incorporated in military industrial complex of the Kyiv regime and basically in army was eliminated. You can see some of their aftermath of Russian strike. Enterprises involved in fire and clearly completely destroyed. Also, we have reports that when it comes to Zaporozhye itself, local authorities local authorities initiated a 2-day evacuation, which is quite a strange thing to come up with, isn't it? 2-day evacuation. I mean, what's going on, or what's going to happen after 2 days? If today is dangerous, then why after 2 days are not that dangerous? So I guess Kiev regime to hide their real situation on the battlefield, including in the Zaporozhye sector, is coming up with all sorts of nonsense like this one, that civilians in Zaporozhye region have to flee city for 48 hours. No one gonna be allowed back. Whoever will leave now, most likely not gonna be allowed back into city. And well, if you ask me, I will also definitely recommend civilians to go somewhere else, go to Europe, right? Demand from Europeans to provide you with everything, right? Because Europeans are directly guilty, not just elites, by the way, but European societies, majority of which is extremely passive when it comes to criminal activity of their governments. They are responsible for everything that is happening to citizens of Ukraine, so therefore they should pay for the consequences, right? Whichever way it needed. So citizens of Ukraine, including from Zaporozhye, should go to Europe and demand everything they need, right? And Europeans should pay. But they're not going to be allowed back into Zaporozhye as long as this city is controlled by Ukrainian Nazis and their fascists. There are reports that Kyiv regime is deploying additional forces in the Zaporozhye sector direction. Probably many of those units will eventually end up in Zaporozhye city itself to fortify the area. And of course, they want civilians out so that they will use their properties. They will use these high-rise apartment buildings and transform them into sort of a strongholds, right? So for us, it is obvious what's going on. But I'm not sure locals, in circumstances when they might not have an opportunity to take a look at their independent sources of their information, locals may don't know, actually, right? Also, interesting report from Zhytomyr this time around, that company called Kronberger and Schubert, by the way, interesting name. And Schubert is, of course, world famous composer, not related to this company. But anyways, company named Kronberg and Schubert with 100% German capital. It's a German company, by the way, German-owned company, has ceased operations due to extensive damage to its assets in Zhytomyr as a result of Russian retaliatory strikes. This company was producing dual-user components, by the way, right, for vehicles on one hand, and there are simultaneously those components were used for military purposes by Kyiv regime's forces for armored vehicles and so on. And so it was a legit target, obviously. And on your screen right now, you can see aftermath of Russia's strike on one of the main facilities of this German company in Zhytomyr. Of course, leadership of this business definitely not as a clever one as one can imagine, because I don't know how stupid one have to be to invest in taking Zhytomyr, man, right now, right? And to keep this business up and running when you know you are producing dual-use elements and you are a legit target. I mean, how stupid one have to be to do so? But they knew what they were doing, by the way. Leadership of this company most likely are freaking descendants of Nazis, German Nazis of Second World War era, and they were willing to produce or to be engaged in to enhance military capabilities of Kyiv regime, and they have paid their price. And this might not be their all, right? This might not be the all, because there are investigations, by the way. Russian investigative committee, Russian security services are opening the cases, criminal cases, by the way, on everybody who committed crimes against Russia. And those criminal cases have no end date, right? So until we will bring everyone to the justice, those cases are going to be open. And we don't give a damn. Those people that committed crime are Ukraine citizens, US citizens, British citizens, French citizens, German citizens, or Australian citizens. We just don't give a damn. We will bring them all to the justice, right? One way or another. Time will come. So if anybody in the Western world thinks that, well, they can commit crimes against Russian people, then they will get away with it. No, no, no. They will pay a price, for sure. Also, we have a report that a few hours ago there was a Russian long-range strike on the military infrastructure of the Kiev regime in Kharkov, and you can see on your screen aftermath of the strike, thick smoke. So I guess some serious damage was done to Kiev regime's military assets there. Also, Russian armed forces, not surprisingly, eliminated almost all gas stations, by the way, in the Poltava area, Poltava region. This information is coming from local authorities that are serving this Nazi and terrorist regime. So literally, entire region is left without operating gas stations. And those gas stations, you know, difference was used by Kiev regime's forces to refuel their military vehicles. So they were absolutely legit targets. Now, maybe local authorities, local representatives of the Kiev regime are exaggerating, and some gas stations still are operational, but not for long. Not for long, quite sure about it. Also, Russian forces, Russian aerospace forces actually, further intensified long-range strikes on the military assets of the Kiev regime. Strikes with their glide bombs included FOBs, right? On number of direction in DPR, on the part of DPR that Kiev regime has its presence, still was targeted by Russian aerospace forces. Also in Kharkov region and in Sumy region. And you know, dear friends, when asked by Western propaganda outlets which Russian weapon is being seen as the most dangerous or terrifying by Kiev regime's forces, FOB bombs, Russian FOB glide bombs, always come up on the top, because I mean it is terrifying, man. It is terrifying. FOB 500. There are several generations, several types. FOB 250, and these numbers mean kilos, right? So FOB 250, FOB 500, FOB 1500, FOB 3000. Recently, members of our community shared information about FOB 5000 being deployed there, and one member of our community was asking when Russia going to start deploying FOB 9000s. I have never seen, by the way, videos with either FOB 5000 or FOB 9000. I mean, I don't know how you even distinguish explosion from FOB 3000 and FOB 5000. I mean, it's going to be massive anyways, right? And almost nothing going to be left on our point of impact, right? But these weapons are definitely terrifying for the Kiev regime's forces. And according to reports past month, Russian forces used more than 8,000 of those bombs. Can you imagine, man? More than 8,000. Just the FOB glide bombs. And precision of these bombs have improved dramatically since the beginning of deployment of these weapon systems. Now, I mean, more often than not, we are receiving videos. We are seeing videos from the side of strike when these glide bombs are landing literally next to each other. And by the way, you don't necessarily have to be in the epicenter of the explosion to be eliminated as a military asset. You might be 200 meters away, 100 meters away, 200 meters away. But due to these massive explosions, right, if you physically survive, you will have internal damage, right? And probably, most likely, and 100% you will have a concussion. 100%. There is no other way, right? And no wonder these FOB glide bombs terrify Kiev regime's forces. Also, dear friends, I want to share with you this interesting report that an explosion has occurred at the munition warehouse at the weapons plant in Bulgaria. Bulgarian national television reported about it. Incident took place at the facility near the town of Travna, belonging to EMCO company owned by the well-known arms dealer Emilian Gebrev. Authorities say no one was injured and around 300 people have been evacuated. There were secondary explosions, by the way, also in the area, so it is understandable that people were evacuated. Also, just a nuance that this plant produces artillery, tank, and mortar munition in both Western and Russian or Soviet calibers, and this enterprise was involved in a transfer of munition to Kiev regime, to Ukrainian Nazis and the terrorists. So therefore, I applaud if this was some Bulgarian freedom fighter who sabotaged this company. If it was some Bulgarian freedom fighter that sabotaged this company, I definitely applaud that person or that group. If it was a group, either way, good news, right? Good news, man. You mess around Russia, don't expect any mercy, man. I mean, it is what it is, right? I don't give a damn about Bulgaria whatsoever now, because Bulgaria is Russian enemy, right? So why would I care? It is what it is, man. Real talk, right? You want to be my enemy, don't expect politeness from me, don't expect mercy from me, man, right? That's how it is, man. I don't expect neither politeness, neither mercy from my enemies either. I mean, this is double-edged sword, right? So it is what it is. Good news, clearly good news. I hope more and more freedom fighters throughout the Europe, also in Canada, also in US, will go ahead and eliminate these terrorist entities, right, that are providing weapons and munition and whatever else to Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists. Hopefully, this type of actions will become a daily occurrence throughout the territory of Russian enemies. I really hope so, man. I really hope so. Meanwhile, Russian Defense Ministry reported today also that during the past 24 hours, Kiev regime lost about 1,300 military personnel throughout the zone of special military operation, and the Russian Air Defense Forces in the past 24 hours intercepted 1,100 drones that are manufactured mostly in the Western countries. Majority of those drones manufactured in Europe, European NATO member states, then transferred to Kiev regime, and those drones are also launched by specialists with direct involvement of specialists from the NATO member states. They are providing not just drones, but flight path, targeting data, satellite intelligence, everything. It's a NATO attacks on Russia. And Ukrainians just are used, or Ukraine is just used as for plausible deniability sake. But we all know this is a NATO strikes on Russia. I remind you, dear friends, that recently Russian hackers get their hands on the documents of NATO intelligence assets, right? There was correspondence of NATO intelligence assets, NATO as an organization itself. And in those documents, there was a clear factual evidences of direct involvement of not just NATO member states separately, but NATO itself. Direct involvement in these attacks on Russian Federation, in organizing those attacks, right? And everything that we already knew was basically confirmed. Also a reminder, dear friends, that in past 24 to 48 hours, Russian forces liberated Vasyutinskaya settlement and Taretskaya settlements in DPR. I can show you on the map location of these settlements. Unfortunately, today, as of now at least, right? I mean, let me check some Telegram channels. Maybe things changed. But as of now, I did not see no reports about settlements being liberated in the past 12 hours, let's say. But in past 24 to 48 hours, these two settlements, Toretskaya and this Vasyutinskaya, right? Vasyutinskaya, yeah. These two settlements were liberated in DPR itself, in that northern western corner of the DPR that Kiev regime still has its presence. Not for long, I'm quite sure about it. Not for much longer. Let's continue with some other news. And dear friends, I already said that all these drones, most of those drones that are launched against Russian Federation are produced in Western countries, in the collective West, and because of this active involvement of NATO member states in this war against Russia, against Russian people, of course, no matter how successful Russian long-range strikes are on the military and the logistical infrastructure of the Kiev regime on a Kiev-controlled territory, unfortunately, this constant flow of long-range weapons to Ukrainian Nazis and the fascists, towards the Ukrainian Nazis and fascists, are not stopping and will not stop, because yet again these weapons are produced in the West, and the only way we can stop this process is to restore the terror with the collective West. And we know what that will require. That will obviously require Russian retaliatory strikes on legit targets in the NATO member states that are directly involved in these attacks on the Russian Federation. And unfortunately, as of now, Russian leadership is hesitant to greenlight Russian security services and their militaries to go ahead and retaliate on those legit targets and basically shut down this process of constant flow of weapons from NATO countries into Kiev-controlled territory, and then long-range attacks on Russia. I don't know if Russian president will ever authorize Russian militaries and security services to restore the terror with the collective West, current Russian president. But situation is definitely very serious. It cannot get any more serious, by the way, when the Defense Ministry itself reports that in past 24 hours, 1,100 drones were intercepted, right? And unfortunately, not all drones are intercepted. Some drones are managing to bypass air defenses and strike Russian territory, residential areas, civilian infrastructure. And unfortunately, every day there are tragedies that are occurring due to this direct NATO attacks, NATO strikes on the Russian Federation. Direct NATO strikes. That's what it is. And unfortunately, today is no exception. Today is no exception. Reports are that there was a massive attack on Nizhny Kamsk in Tatarstan Autonomous Republic. According to some reports, industrial areas were targeted, including oil refinery. And there was reports of massive casualties, mass casualties in Tatarstan, in Nizhny Kamsk area. 13 civilians were killed, and there are at least 75 injured as a result of this NATO attack, NATO/Ukrainian attack, let's say this way, on Russian territory, on the Tatarstan Republic of Russia, on Nizhny Kamsk. So 75 people were injured in a Ukrainian drone. I mean, Russian media continues to use this phraseology that Ukrainian attacks, Ukrainian. It's a NATO attacks, man. Just be freaking real and say it as it is, man. This is no longer Ukrainian attack. It was never a Ukrainian attack. It was always NATO attacks. But that's the language that Russian MSM is using. 75 people were injured in a Ukrainian drone attack on Nizhny Kamsk, according to press service of the Tatarstan president Rustam Milikhanov. And unfortunately, Russian officials are also using the same language, that it's a Ukrainian attacks, right? Never mentioning, or almost never mentioning, the NATO, which is insane. But there are 13 killed as a result of this attack, 75 people injured, 21 were hospitalized out of this 71 injured. Child was among victims of this strike. Another child lost life as a result of this NATO terrorism against Russian Federation. And well, dear friends, you might think these attacks are on Kazakhstan, sorry, on Tatarstan, was launched from Q-control territory. But I think this is not the case. And right now on your screen, you can see the location of Tatarstan Autonomous Republic in Russia. It's quite far away, very far away actually, from Q-control territory, right? And look the location of Kazakhstan, where Kazakhstan is. And I believe this attack on Tatarstan and every other attack on Tatarstan was conducted by British, American secret services and the militaries from Kazakhstani territory. British embassy in Kazakhstan, US embassy in Kazakhstan are directly involved in the transfer of weapons, components of these drones, and explosives into Kazakhstan soil. I'm quite sure Azerbaijan is also play a key role in that, and probably Azerbaijan is also used by British ruling class, British secret services to deliver explosives and drone components on the Kazakhstani territory through Caspian Sea. And Astana, which knows this perfectly well, does nothing to stop this terrorist activity of British and US ruling class, intelligence community and militaries. And Astana does nothing because they've been blackmailed, because they are cowards. Kazakhstan leadership is a coward, compromised, obviously. And Kazakhstan itself is infiltrated by British ruling class, British intelligence services, and their proxies, Turkish, for example, secret services, big time. And Astana literally does nothing to stop these attacks on Russian territory, on Russian Federation from Kazakhstani ground and airspace. That's what is happening, by the way. I wonder when Moscow will initiate some serious talks with Astana about these developments, if ever, because but this is not normal. This is not freaking normal when formerly ally of Russia, that Kazakhstan on paper is directly involved in these terrorist attacks on the Russian people and the Russian Federation. This is not normal, and the situation needs to be addressed. And if you think only Kazakhstan was targeted in the past 24 hours or past night and the early morning from Kazakhstan territory, no, it was not just Tatarstan. There are reports also that Kaminsky district of this in Sverdlovsk region was targeted. At least drones were seen, filmed, by the way, by locals in the air. And you know where Sverdlovsk region is? I can show you that too on the map. That's where Sverdlovsk region is, even further east than Tatarstan. So obviously those drones have been launched not from Kiev control territory, but from Kazakhstani territory. And this is not the first time, not the second time, not the third time. This happens on regular basis. And in order to keep Kazakhstani leadership in check, well, London and Washington every now and then organize attacks on the CPC infrastructure, Caspian Pipeline Consortium infrastructure, which allows Kazakhstan to export its oil through Russian territory, by the way, right? Because terminal of CPC is located in Novorossiysk and was struck on numerous occasions, right? And so to keep Kazakhstan leadership in check, to make sure that Astana does nothing to stop this terrorist activity of British leadership, British political class and intelligence, and US political class and intelligence, they are targeting CPC every now and then, right? And recently, you know, there was a promise, isn't it, that made allegedly by Kiev regime, in reality by London, that there are going to be no strikes on CPC infrastructure for the time being. And that meant if Astana will behave and will do nothing to stop terrorist activity of UK and the US from their territory. And Ukraine, obviously, right? Ukraine is always used as a tool for plausible deniability. All these terrorist activities orchestrated, conducted basically by US and British intelligence and military services, mostly. Of course, France, Germany, they are involved big time. But when it comes to leading forces in this war against Russia, of course, it's US and UK. No doubts about that. That's the tragic, unfortunate reality of these days. And well, I truly wonder how long Moscow is going to tolerate this inaction, from Kazakhstani leadership. And maybe it is time for Moscow and Beijing to have a serious conversation about future of Kazakhstan, because we all understand, if today globalists are using Kazakhstan against Russia, tomorrow they're going to use Kazakhstan and a number of other Central Asian republics of former Soviet Union against China, 100%, right? You don't have to be genius to understand that. So clearly there is a necessity, absolute necessity, due to security concerns, right, for Beijing and Moscow to have serious talks about future of Kazakhstan and about future of number of other quasi states there in Central Asia. This is absolutely necessary, by the way. This is not normal what is going on, and some serious steps have to be taken and will be taken, hopefully, right? Maybe not under the current leadership of Russia, but for sure, or hopefully under the different other leadership, right? And also, dear friends, I want to share with you this report that is coming from Atlantic, or whatever their freaking name is, of that yet another propaganda outlet of Western world, Atlantic, right? That well, US, we have additional confirmation if we needed one, right? That US basically provides for free Kiev regime, and that is basically US intelligence community, US militaries, and also British intelligence and British militaries. US provides intelligence for long-range attacks on Russian Federation, including on energy sector. Of course, this does not come as a surprise for any of us, this report, but well, it's been highlighted in Western propaganda, correct? It's been highlighted in Western propaganda, and I think we have to pay attention to it also. Not surprised, of course, sir. I know US is a only NATO member state, basically, that actually has satellite installation, big enough satellite installation in orbit out there to have under the constant monitoring entire territory of Russia. And it's the US that provides this satellite intelligence flight path targeting data, mostly, by the way, mostly US, that provides all the necessary data for these long-range attacks on Russia, and not just, obviously, not just on energy infrastructure, but literally all long-range attacks, for all long-range attacks. And it's US. It's US that provided intelligence that was used by British military and intelligence services alongside American and Kiev regime itself to attack Tatarstan, right? Which caused death of 13 civilians and 75 was injured. And this is still preliminary data. It's US. It's not, you know, I wonder when in the Kremlin if they read, by the way, reports about level of involvement of US and UK and other NATO member states in this war against Russia, what their reaction is, man, right? How on earth they can tolerate this carnage, these tragedies, right? And this carnage that Russia is facing only because of these NATO member states and their terrorist activity. And how come that we are still not retaliating, man? How? What the hell is going on in the Kremlin, man? I don't know. I don't know. Meanwhile, Vucic, president of Serbia, once again come up with their statements that well, world is on the brink of a major war. I give you a quote from him. I think we are at the beginning of the larger war, and that's why I was hoping someone else would have already done something to bring peace. This has not happened and won't happen anytime soon, which means we are on the brink of a much larger war, which it said criticizing the major powers for their inaction in preventing military conflicts. And well, I mean, which is correct, by the way, yes, but this statement of his does not really come as a surprise for any of us, right? Definitely not for veterans of our community, because I don't know how many times I have said in my previous updates that by 2029, 2030, globalists and globalist controlled regimes in Europe hoping to be ready to get engaged openly in military hostilities with Russia. And that's why they are allocating, by the way, these hundreds of billions of euros, right, for a key regime to keep this regime, right, keep this regime alive by that time, by 2029, 2030, right, when their first phase of remilitarization of European NATO member states are gonna finish, right? Because it seems like globalists and their puppet regimes in Europe think that, well, they will be capable enough at that point to engage Russia militarily, right? And well, question is rising. So therefore, Vucic's statement is not a surprise for me, for you, for anybody who pays any attention. Question is, why on earth, man, we, Russian Federation, are waiting for Europe to finalize that first phase of the military remilitarization process, while we are giving them time, when we have hundreds of reasons, thousands of reasons to retaliate on these NATO member states, European NATO member states, and not just derail their remilitarization process, but actually, restore the deterrent and force Western ruling class to back down, completely back down and get out of this war. After which it will only take a couple of months for Russian militaries and secret services to finalize special military operation, and the Russian troops, literally in a few months' time, once we force NATO out, literally in a few months' time, will be on the border with Western Ukraine. So why we are giving them time to get ready? That's the question I have, man. And no one gonna give me an answer, obviously, right? Because only Kremlin, only Russian president probably knows, and maybe few people in his closest inner circle, why he is giving the time to his Western partners that are Russian enemies, actually, and enemies of Russian people. So why he is giving this much time, man, and opportunities to his Western partners? Can anybody explain? I can't, because I don't know. But he is clearly, has no intention, at least as of now, to restore the deterrent with the collective West and to greenlight Russian secret services and their militaries to do whatever they think is necessary to rapidly finalize, to keep NATO out of this war and rapidly finalize special military operation. Furthermore, it looks like Russian president more inclined towards prolongation of these useless contacts with their representatives of Western, collective Western, including US, by the way. And that's why TASS news agency, state-run media outlet, shared a few days ago information that this week, special envoy of US President Steve Witkoff and their son-in-law of US President Jared Kushner might visit Kiev and also Moscow. This report was published past week, but today is a Monday, isn't it? So this week, these two nobodies, Witkoff and Kushner, might visit Kiev and then come to Russia. And because state-run media is talking about it, that means Putin most likely already green-lighted this visit, and I'm afraid he will have a meeting with them again. So yeah, you tell me in which in which world Putin is, right? Because Putin is clearly his mind is definitely not in the same universe as mine. We are in different worlds, man. Because to me personally, Putin's policies in regards to special military operation, in regards to policies towards the Western border, Western ruling class, makes no sense whatsoever. But somehow he continues on that path, right? Which brings only more tragedies to Russia, only more death and destruction. But he still continues, man. And mark my word, if Witkoff and Kushner are going to come to Russia, most likely they will have a meeting with the Putin, right? The whole world going to laugh, obviously, that the Russian president is wasting time on meetings with these nobodies, while not a single time US president personally greeted envoys of Russian president. Dmitriev was in US many times in past 12, 14 months, isn't it? Many times. Not a single, there was not a single episode when he was greeted by Trump himself. So why Russian president is greeting personally these nobodies then? Representatives of Trump. Makes no sense, isn't it? Does it make any sense whatsoever? It does not. But yeah, tell this to those in the Kremlin. RT meanwhile reports that this is something extraordinary, man. Of course. Same time, Deputy Foreign Minister of Russian Federation, Mikhail Galuzin, is saying that Russia is still open for Anchorage agreements, right? Still ready for implementations for Anchorage agreements, but same time, Russia rules out completely freezing of the conflict. Yeah, which one is, man? Lately, Russian foreign ministry is becoming a freaking joke too. Unfortunately, man, right? Russian foreign ministry has been sidelined by President of Russia, and a job that foreign ministry should do is now in hands of Ushakov and Dmitriev, aides of Russian president, right? But on top of that, high-ranking diplomats in the foreign ministry are making these statements that freaking makes no sense whatsoever, right? And they're further jeopardizing their own reputation. Why? What's going on, man? So let me give you some details. So Moscow will not settle for freezing the Ukraine conflict without addressing its origins and resolving its underlying causes. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Galuzin has stated. Good statement, nothing new there. These kind of statements have been made by many officials in the past. But let's continue. Russia's demands include abandoning its plans to join NATO by Ukraine and adopting neutral status, accepting restrictions on its armed forces, and formally recognizing Crimea and the 4 former Ukrainian regions as Russian territory. Crimea voted to join Russia shortly after 2014 Western backer coup in Kiev, and the regions of Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporozhye, and Kherson did the same in September 2022. Then, quote from Galuzin, as Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly said, there can be no freeze of the conflict without addressing the root causes of the crisis. Galuzin told the TASS in an interview published on Monday. He added that Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky has completely lost touch with reality and is seeking to further escalate the conflict. Zelensky definitely lost touch with reality, but I wonder who else also lost touch with reality completely. And I think I know who those else are, right? I think I know that. But let's continue. Let's continue with that statements of Galuzin. So Galuzin condemned what called barbaric Ukrainian attacks on the civilian energy infrastructure, including strikes on the Caspian Pipeline Consortium terminal in Russia's Black Sea port of Novorossiysk, which holds the flow of Kazakh oil to Europe and Asia. CPC shareholders include major Western oil companies such as Chevron, ExxonMobil, and Shell. And by the way, RT did not report about it. That's quite interesting. RT didn't report about it, but Galuzin also said that, well, Moscow is still pretty much on a topic of on a page of that Anchorage summit, and expects something positive to come out of it. Anchorage freaking summit, by the way, they're still talking about Anchorage summit. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? That these high-ranking officials here in Russia, to this moment, talking about Anchorage. I mean, so embarrassing, so freaking embarrassing, isn't it? And when Galuzin says that Russia rules out Ukraine conflict to be freeze, and when he quotes Russian president, unfortunately, I have to say that I don't take this seriously. I don't think Russian president right now actually focused on goals that he declared publicly. Because if he wanted demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, then fastest way to do so is to restore the terms with the collective West, force NATO countries out of this conflict, and that is that. For Russian security services and militaries, it would not take more than a couple of months to completely neutralize remnants of that Nazi and the fascist regime, and Russian troops will be on the border with Western Ukraine in just a few months' time. And so if Russian president was serious, or is serious, or if Galuzin is serious, then where is the deterrent with the collective West? Did I miss something? No, I did not. Isn't it? So we are entering the situation, by the way, when statements of Russian high-ranking officials hardly can be taken seriously no more. Unfortunately, right? Because I struggle to understand what the hell they are talking about, honestly. And I don't think I'm the dumbest person in this world. I'm not a genius, for sure, but I truly don't think I'm the dumbest freaking person in this world. And when it comes to the topic of NATO's preparations to launch a war against Russia, I mean, it is true they are preparing, by the way. They are waging war against Russia already, right, for quite a number of years, right? But by 2029, 2030, they hope to be in a position to actually enter this war openly. And, well, you might ask her how they're going to do this, how they're going to provoke confrontation, how they're going to justify this. By the way, they can come up with the false flag operations like several times a day if they want to, and then use that as a justification to launch a military campaign. They can provoke Russia. They can do some stuff on such a scale that even Putin, who loves his Western partners, even Putin will have no option but to greenlight Russian military and securities for retaliation, and then that retaliation will be used by Western elites as justification. You know, like, you see, they attack us, and so there is numerous ways how Western ruling class can provoke and then justify open war with Russian Federation. One of the ways could be the false flags, right? So take a look at the story that happened in Leipzig like a few days ago, and I reported about it. Isn't it? When right next to this Ukrainian AN 124 Ruslan plane, FPV drone was found with explosive. And well, today, a number of sources are reporting, DSL, for example, German media outlet, isn't it? That allegedly Ukrainian AN 124 Ruslan cargo plane actually was struck by FPV drone, at the Leipzig airport in Germany. But for interesting reasons, it did not explode. How convenient, isn't it? How convenient that story is. Hey, they blame. Of course, they're gonna blame Russia, and theoretically speaking, by the way, they can use this kind of false flag operations to justify anything, right? Not just more sanctions, but they might try to invoke Fifth Article if they want to, and who's gonna stop them? Either societies in the Western countries are in a position to understand any of it, to understand anything really. I'm talking about majorities. No, man, majority of societies in Western countries have no freaking idea what's going on. They've been not just brainwashed, they've been zombified by propaganda. So they will take for face value whatever they've been told through MSN by their so-called leaders. So don't worry, man. Whenever Western elites will decide that, they think they are ready now to enter the war openly against Russia, they will manage to come up with their ways how to organize that. What I do not understand is why on earth we are giving them time to prepare. In current situation, I said about it in the past. Current situation, by the way, definitely resembles to me period right before Second World War, right before, not Second World War, but right before Great Patriotic War started, when Nazi Germany attacked Soviet Union. Because despite a lot of intelligence reports, despite a lot of data, despite a lot of provocations on the border, by the way, right? And factual evidences that Germany was massing the troops, Stalin and his headquarters, they did not took seriously risks of German attack, inevitability of the German attack on the Soviet Union, and as a result of that, by the way, first month of the Great Patriotic War was absolutely devastating, totally devastating for Red Army and for Soviet Union. And you tell me why Stalin, while having so many reports that Germany was planning to attack Soviet Union, he even know some reports were even telling him exact date, that on 22nd Germany is going to attack. So why Stalin and his headquarters, why they hesitate to take some actions, right? To at least go for preemptive steps, or to keep entire freaking army, man, on the highest possible alert. Why they failed to react accordingly on these reports? Why they hesitate, man? I don't know. And and this time is resembles for me to that era because Putin and his inner circle, man, they also are hesitating. They know, I'm quite sure they have a lot of intelligence that NATO is already engaged in this war and NATO is planning openly to be engaged there in a few years' time from now. Why Kremlin is hesitant to take preemptive steps, right? Why we are giving these NATO countries a time to better prepare? Makes no sense, does it? Honestly, makes no freaking sense, man. But that's where we are. That's where we are, man. Before I continue, dear friends, sir, there is a lot of news, sir, that I want to share in this program. But before I continue, let me highlight that this media project, let me highlight for possible new members, because veterans know perfectly well that this media project is completely subscriber funded there, and that means only exists as long as I have your support, community support. And if you like my programs, if you like my work, please consider to support her. You can do it through several means. You can donate through PayPal platform or Boosty platform. Links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. You can support her with the subscription to my Patreon page and the Boosty page if you can afford to become a monthly supporter. Subscription on the Patreon starts from $5 and on Boosty $5 a month, and you can choose your level of support, what you can afford. And on Boosty, it's always different because Boosty exchanges straight away in rubles, so it always depends on the exchange rate. But it's something similar, $5-6 approximately monthly subscription, and I have quite a lot of extra content there. By the way, first, my updates are published initially on Patreon and Boosty, and it's not just news updates, but just random videos, by the way, about life here in Russia. Some walk around the videos and stuff like that. So you might enjoy it, and you might never actually watch anything there, but if in order to support my work, you can just subscribe and renew your subscription once a month when you will receive a message. Do you want to continue or not? All the links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And of course, during the live streams right now, you can use super chat feature on Rumble as a wayward husband did, and I will react on wayward's super chats straight after the news segment, as well as on the comments that I received through PayPal and Boosty. And also on the Rumble, by the way, you can use that super chat premium subscription gift card feature to donate. So there is several ways how you can actually support my work. And that's been said, dear friends, many thanks to everybody who supported in the past and continues to support now my work and keeps this project alive and me in this field of news and political commentary. Hopefully, I have interesting programs, original programs, right? And I'm trying, man. I'm trying to give you interesting updates. That's been said, let's continue with some other news. And well, Middle East, of course, we have to talk about Middle East. According to Axios, Trump has stated that U.S. President Trump has stated that United States is not currently planning to resume large-scale military operations against Iran, and is instead they're focusing on economic pressure. And when it comes to economic pressure, by the way, I mean, if Iran knows anything, first and foremost, how to deal with their economic pressure and their Western sanctions, isn't it? Because they are entire generations grew up in Iran, under the sanctions policies that West has imposed, totally illegal sanctions policies that they impose on Iranian people, right? So in terms of sanctions, the US is not going to get any far, really, or the Western ruling class. The US is just a tool in the hands of Western ruling class, isn't it? But when it comes to pause in military hostilities, in these long-range attacks, well, there is explanation for that. As I have said many times before, and Western media lately state the same, US is in no position to sustain high-intensity exchange of long-range attacks with Iran, because they are running out of long-range missiles. They are running out of interceptor missiles, so they cannot protect their military assets in the region, and they are running out long-range strike missiles also, Tomahawks, JSSMs, ATACMS, and so on. They just don't have much of those missiles in the stock, and whatever they have, I guess Pentagon wants to use mostly during the next phase of the war, which is going to be launched after midterm elections, and that means either late autumn or early winter, most likely early winter, right? So of course they're going to come up. Meanwhile, they will try to keep region in instability. They will try to maintain certain pressure, maritime blockade, and that kind of stuff. And also they will continue this rhetorical escalation with Iran to make sure that ground is prepared for next phase of war to be launched at any given point. Iran also has something to say, and the spokesman of the Iran's foreign ministry, Baghei, stated that Iran confirms that a transit fees will be imposed on the Strait of Hormuz, no matter what. Mechanisms will be put in place to monitor safe maritime transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Naturally, when you provide maritime services, you must do a compensation for that. And yes, man, Iran and Oman, they already have agreement in place. And when circumstances are right, they're going to go ahead and implement these new rules in the region. But before that, all the vessels that are moving up and down going to pay fees to Iran if they want to pass safely through that strait, because many vessels every now and then, thinking that they know better, they are attempting to move around without contacting Iranian side, and usually something happens to those vessels. Also, Foreign Minister of Iran, Abbas Araghchi, made a statement that until the US compensates for violations of their memorandum of understanding, there will be no opening for talks to restart between Tehran and Washington. And of course, Abbas Araghchi knows perfectly well that MOU was a deception operation, and everything else that comes from the Western ruling class, from the Zionists, is a deception operation. They are just buying time to better prepare for next phase of the war. But nevertheless, Iranian politicians have to respond on certain statements from the West, certain developments, and that's what they do. But they know perfectly well what is going on, right? And when it comes to next phase of the war, well, because U.S. high-ranking military commanders, by the way, are not happy with the situation. They are recommending Trump to get out of this war, and they are against, according to Western media reports, they are against of a ground invasion due to weaknesses that Pentagon is facing. Unfortunately, there is a tremendous risk that during the next phase of war, U.S. will deploy nuclear weapons. And because Western ruling class has no reverse gear and the brakes, they're going to be next phase of escalation there for next phase of war, and to make sure that Trump personally and his inner circle will act according to orders that they will receive from this Western ruling class. Well, they are sending very clear messages. For example, globalist allies, in US, Democrats that themselves are globalists, already are making public statements that they're going to go after Trump. They're going to go after Trump. Midterm elections, I mean, Democrats are quite sure that they're going to regain control over the House and the Senate. And they already are threatening Trump and his inner circle, his family. And you think Trump is a figure who will risk everything to do something that is right, and Trump will actually pull US out of this war? No, he's not going to do this, man. He has no courage to do this. He has no moral principles to even be able to consider such a thing, to risk everything for a right decision for sake of humanity. No, he's not that person, and so therefore, of course, he will obey orders, and because there are many indicators that are in conventional ways, in conventional warfare, US and its allies not going to be able to achieve tasks that Western ruling class has in this Middle Eastern chapter of their global strategy. Most definitely they're going to go for nuclear weapons. That's why US is adopting its nuclear strategy. They are making changes in the nuclear strategy, by the way, and they are shifting focus on tactical nukes. And tactical nukes, where they're going to be used, right? Tactical nuclear warheads on the battlefield. This is not a strategical nuclear arsenal. This is tactical. When you are using nukes literally on the battlefield. And they're going to do it, man. Maybe we are just several months away. Not maybe. I think there is a extremely high probability, extremely high risk that we for sure are just several months away from nuclear strikes on Iran, conducted by US, not by Israel, because Zionists are not that stupid, man. They're not going to go for nuclear strikes on Iran, because that will be end of Israel. They know this. Globalists and Zionists, they're going to use US for these nuclear strikes, because they know no one's going to strike back on US with the nukes for that. Neither Russia, neither China will strike US with the nukes for this, right? There will be condemnations, obviously, of course, strong statements, everything else. Not what they might expect, but neither US, neither Russia, neither China will strike US with the nukes for attacking, for nuking Iran. That's how it is, man. That's how dangerous the situation is. And the only way, I think, nuclear escalation can be avoided in the Middle East is if Moscow and Beijing will make a stand. If Moscow and Beijing will make a stand there, but this is also hardly possible, right? Because Moscow is unwilling to restore deterrent with the collective West that kills Russian citizens on daily basis and targets Russia on daily basis. So I don't think if for sake of protection of the Russian citizens and the Russian Federation, Moscow is not willing to escalate with the Western ruling class and strike back and restore deterrent, then for sure Moscow will not escalate with Washington or the Western ruling class for Iran. That's an unfortunate reality. And China is even more cautious, even more careful. Beijing is even more careful than Russian leadership is. So, yes, both countries will provide, and do provide, I'm quite sure, Iran with certain important assistance, intelligence, weapons, whatever, right? But But none of those countries going to risk to take a stand there and against Western ruling class and to make it clear that you attack Iran with the nukes, we're going to nuke you back. But I think that would be a right decision if Moscow and Beijing will do exactly that. If they will send a clear message to Western world, you nuke Iran. If you're going to use nuclear weapons against Iran, either US or Israel, it's going to be US, by the way, but whichever, and we will strike on you all with the nukes. That should be the message. That might deter actually Western elites, right? But neither Moscow, neither Beijing going to do it, man. That's because of the weaknesses, of both. I remember, by the way, it was 1971. I was not born yet, but it was 1971, isn't it, when US led military coalition was going after India, isn't it? And they sent their strike groups, aircraft strike groups, a lot of militaries, a lot of assets, everything. And they were about to eliminate India, right? 1971. And what Moscow did? Remember what Moscow did? Moscow sent their Soviet Union sent fleet, and the clear message with it to the Western world: you attack India, we're gonna attack you. And whatever will happen after that, fuck it. We are doing to go after you anyways. And you think what happened? Western ruling class backed down because they understood Moscow was not bluffing, man. Moscow was not bluffing. And if US and its allies would strike Iran, Soviet Union would launch nuclear attack on Western world in retaliation. And it worked. It worked. And India survived. Bangladesh emerged, by the way. That was called prior to that time Eastern Pakistan, right? That was the name of Bangladesh. And this, and people there in Bangladesh were treated extremely badly by Islamabad, right? So India take a stand there with the Pakistan, supported Bangladeshi people. There was a war between the sides, right? And India come up on the top in that war, largely because of the Soviet help and the help of the Soviet people, Soviet Union, right? But nevertheless, so that's what we have to do now. We have to take a stand, as Moscow did in 1971. And unfortunately, neither Moscow, neither Beijing are willing to do it, man. It's not about strength, military strength, Bob. It's about psychological strength, right? And I'm afraid both Moscow and Beijing are just too weak psychologically. Those people that are in charge are not ready to die, man. And if you are not ready to die, what kind of soldier are you then in that case? What kind of fighter are you in that case? You know? Anyways, man. Let's continue with some other news, sir. And well, as I mentioned, every now and then, by the way, some company leadership that are navigating in the Middle East gonna think that they are clever than everyone else, gonna attempt to navigate without contacting Iranian side, and usually something bad happens to those vessels. And well, there are reports that vessel, another one, was struck off coast of Oman, presumably by IRGC, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. So yeah, I mean, at this point, none of us are surprised. Only question I have, I mean, how come that these stupid people are in operating these companies, man? That navigate throughout the world, man. How stupid are those people, and how come that these stupid elements end up being in the charge of these companies, these maritime companies? I don't know, man. I don't know. Unbelievable. You know. Also, I want to highlight this topic because this is important. You know, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey signed the agreement to create this military alliance. Turkey basically joined Saudi-Pakistani military alliance, and they are making it clear that this alliance is pretty much open. This alliance is pretty much open for pretty much open for enlargement, right? New members to join. It's a nuclear alliance because Pakistan is a nuclear country, of course, and the Turkish foreign minister Fidan stated day before yesterday that next country that will join might be Egypt, possibly. I don't know. And of course, everybody's. I mean, many commentators out there on internet are sharing opinions what this organization is about, against whom, and what is behind it. And I personally think that this existence, creation of this alliance, NATO type military alliance, which has a principle attack on one is attack on all. Creation of this alliance is an unintended consequence of extremely aggressive behavior of the Zionists in the region, Zionists and Israel and their allies, right? This is just unintended consequence of that. And of course, local countries, I mean, regional countries in the Middle East are somewhat panicking, as they should, by the way, because Israel is clearly going after all of them, because this great Israel project that Zionists are pushing includes territories of almost the entire Middle East, almost in every country in the Middle East, right? So, including Saudi Arabia. That's why Saudi Arabia is the party of this agreement. Turkey is there, by the way. Israel wants some Turkish territories too. They think it's a part of a greater Israel also, and many others, right? So I think this is an unintended consequence of this extremely aggressive behavior and policies and actions of Zionists and the Israelis and their allies. And if anything, this instrument now will try to contain Israel, first and foremost. Some commentators in the West were very fast to claim that this alliance is against Iran. I don't see it that way. I really don't. It's not against Iran. Might be used against Iran in certain circumstances, but definitely foundation of this alliance is to contain, in my opinion, Israel, not Iran, because Iran itself wants to join in this alliance, right? And you might say, well, come on, Iran is a Shiite, and this alliance, members of this alliance are all Sunnis. Yes, for now, all the members are Sunni countries, but if you think that just because they are majority Sunni, they have no issues with each other, this is not correct, right? Because Turkey and Saudi Arabia are arch enemies, basically, right? Both countries are fighting for leadership in the Sunni Muslim world. Both. And well, Turkey has quite difficult relationships with Egypt also, because Turkey is a stronghold of Muslim Brotherhood, for example, which is a creation of the Western ruling class, let's say, in many ways. And Egypt, the political ruling class in Egypt, including military elites, consider Muslim Brotherhood to be existential threat for them and for the current system, political system in Egypt. But you see, Turkish foreign minister is saying that Egypt might be the next that will join this alliance. And well, despite all the differences, Saudi Arabia did not block Turkey to join this alliance. So it's not about religion necessarily. It's not necessarily about this sectarian element. It's about containing Israel. And therefore, Iran might join this alliance because it makes sense. This will make this alliance actual force in the Middle East, because Pakistan is very far away, man. I mean, not very far away, but relatively far away from main theater of the Middle East, while Iran is in the heart of the Middle East, isn't it? So not surprisingly, Iranian leadership made a statement about this alliance, right? And for example, Baghei, FM Foreign Ministry spokesman of Iran, Ismail Baghei, stated that there is no reason to worry that Pakistan, Turkey, Saudi Arabia pact is directed against Iran. The new pact is changing the regional security approach to the system, independent from outside powers. And yes, I think, as I said, man, this is unintended consequences of extremely aggressive Zionist policies and policies of their allies. Of course, Western ruling class will try now to infiltrate this infrastructure, newly built infrastructure, and derail the processes. And if they will succeed, they will do it. They will do just that. But they might not succeed because, yet again, all the regional countries being, security of all the regional countries being jeopardized by Zionists and Israel and their allies. And that's why, because this is as additional indicator that my reading of the big picture is correct, Iran's foreign ministry is stating that this new pact is changing the regional security approach to the system, independent from the outside powers. So Iran does not believe that this alliance is created by Western ruling class to be used against Iran, for example. No. Western ruling class will try to infiltrate and use, but they might fail. And first and foremost, this alliance is to contain Zionists, and Iran might join, man. Right? I believe, like several months ago, when Saudi Pakistan come up with this bilateral agreement, military alliance, Iran made it clear at the time that they would like to join this alliance also. Also, dear friends, I want to share with you reports about further activities of the Houthis that are retaliating on Saudi assets big time. If yesterday Saudi assets were targeted in the Mocha port area in Lebanon, in Yemen, by the way, and Saudi still has a significant presence in Yemen. Also, there was reports that Saudi oil refinery was struck in Jizan area, Red Sea coast of Saudi Arabia by Houthis. Today, we also have a report that there were more strikes conducted on Saudi forces, their weapons depots near their so Yemeni Houthis launched the missile and drone strikes at the Saudi gatherings and the weapons depots. No specifics where exactly these attacks took place, but Yemenis are not stopping and will not stop. Ansar Allah movement will not stop until Riyadh, through mediators, third parties, could be Tehran, could be, I don't know, Islamabad or whomever, Muscat, for example, until Riyadh will seek the escalation. And they have to, because otherwise, little by little, but Yemeni Houthis will make life of Saudi leadership a living hell, man. All they will receive is bad news, right, about more and more attacks, and soon Yemenis might go on taking offensive and invade Saudi Arabia. They have done it quite a few times during that 9-year war, and a quite significant number of Yemeni Houthi forces were entering Saudi Arabia, conducting military operations, ambushing convoys and stuff, and then going back to Yemen. So Riyadh has to make some serious decisions. By the way, if they are not suicidal, they will seek the escalation. If they are suicidal, then I don't know. They are in trouble for sure. Also, dear friends, we have an update about Russian military bases in Syria. I'm staying in my reporting in the Middle East. And well, update is that Russian military bases in Khmeimim and Tartus will be converted into joint training and educational centers under the Memorandum of Understanding. This was stated by Syrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I can give you a quote regarding military bases and their facilities. The parties agreed to review their functions so that they are transformed from military bases into joint training and education centers within the framework of a new agreement that ensure mutual interests. The state news agency Sana state shared with the public, and well, this is too bad, man. Really, I was never supporter of presence of Russian militaries in Syria, but when Assad was in power, because it was a secular government, right? No terrorists, no freaking radicals were running around and killing people on ethnic and sectarian lines. I was finding some justifications for Russian presence there, right? Including Russian bases to be present. But once Israeli, US, British, Turkish-backed terrorists all around the country removing Assad's government, after that, I truly struggle to understand what on earth we are doing there still, why Russian bases still exist in Syria, and I struggle to understand even more this report that now Russian base is going to become a training centers for those freaking jihadist these forces. Am I understanding correctly, man? Russian military is now going to do what exactly? Train armed forces of this Damascus regime, which is a terrorist freaking regime, by the way. Yeah, that's quite a unpleasant place to be, man. I think, right? And I don't know. I don't even know what to say. And I never wanted Russian bases to be there to begin with. So obviously, I'm shocked by the way that this is the agreement now that we're gonna train armed forces of this Damascus regime that are freaking terrorists, man. They might dress like militaries, they might try to act like militaries or actual secret services, but these are freaking jihadists, right? That not so long ago cutting heads of civilians, terrorizing civilians, and were attempting to kill, and they're attacking Russian militaries. Very same Russian militaries that now gonna do what? Train them? Goodness me, man. What the hell is going on in this world? Insanity, right? Insanity, man. And you know what? Let me end the news segment on something positive. A few days ago, I reported about situation around American family, which is a Russian family now, I will argue. American migrants that end up having some issues with their bureaucracy, right? With Russian bureaucracy, because they were not careful enough, man. They were not careful enough. You don't want to, you don't want to mess around bureaucracy here, man. In Russia or any other country for that matter. Let's be real, man. Is there any good bureaucracies anywhere in this world? I don't think so, right? But well, family
end up in a sort of a trouble. They believe that they're gonna be deported, or right, but they're not gonna be deported, right? And the bureaucracy will actually assist them to normalize the paperwork that they need to have, right? And they've been even recommended to get Russian citizenship. So let me give you details now on that. So situation has been resolved. It's all good and positive. A headline on Uzbek newspaper says American farmer Walker avoided deportation for his family. That's what should be their headline, but Vzгляд says deportation from Russia. He cannot be deported. He's a Russian citizen, right? Vzгляд needs to be more careful what they are publishing. So the wife and the children of renowned Altai cheesemaker Justus Walker are not facing deportation. They have been allowed to remain in Altai region, the former farmer himself announced. And then quote from farmer, this guy by the way, we came to Barnaul for an interview to talk and they had a good conversation with their migration service. I mean, good conversation with migration service, by the way. I mean, this bureaucracy is a harsh stuff, man, everywhere, right? Especially migration offices. It's not a nice place to be, man. I know what am I talking about. I had to deal with the migration office for like 10, 11 years, right? Before I get Russian citizenship. So, and I had definitely, I have seen there are good bureaucrats, right? Professionals, and I have seen there are bad bureaucrats that maybe were professionals, but attitude, man, goodness me. So we came into Barno for an interview to talk and had a good conversation with their migration service. Everything seemed clear. There was some misunderstanding, some confusion, but they say there are no grounds for deportation. Walker explained to RIA Novosti. RIA Novosti is our like second biggest news agency here in Russia. He added that his family was strongly encouraged to apply for citizenship. No sanctions were imposed. Walker has uh, lived in Altai Krai for about 10 years and holds Russian passport. He is a Russian citizen, right? So good that well, uh, bureaucracy this time around did not enter full crazy mode as they could, right? Because as far as I can tell, given the reports that I see, by the way, in Russian media, uh, this family of a farmer messed up with the documents, right? And you don't do that. You don't. If you want to migrate to Russia, right, you have to follow every freaking step in that bureaucratical line, right? Otherwise, you might end up in a trouble, man. And this time around, because I think this media attention also helped in some ways, right? Maybe local authorities just say, you know what, we want to give you, even without media attention, we'll tell them that, come on, man, there is a rules, right? You have to obey these rules. We don't want to deport you guys that have no Russian citizenship, but we will have to if you don't obey certain rules. Uh, and their explanation was given. Everyone understands what's going on now, right? No one gonna be deported nowhere. Good luck to this family, by the way, right? We need positive stories in terms of migrations because I'm a big supporter of idea to make bureaucracy as less demanding as possible. Of course, they're going to be demanding anyways. It's migration after all, serious topic. But I'm supporter of idea that bureaucracy should be uh, more approachable, right, and more open for to assist migrants that might came to Russia, especially from the Western world. And I say especially from the Western world because people from the Western world, families from the Western world that have usually, that's who migrates, by the way, traditional values, right? Conservative values. Those families from Western world will integrate into Russian society without much of issues, right? Without any issues, actually, any serious issues. There are going to be some obstacles, like language is not easiest one, Russian language, and there are going to be some minor elements or minor moments, but they will assimilate, they will integrate without much of an issue. While this cannot be the case, and probably will not be the case in regards to some other regions of this world, right? And some might call me racist or something. I don't care, man. Honestly, right? I don't want Russia to face same issues that Western countries are facing right now when they have this migration crisis. Social fabric is stretched beyond limits, right? And everybody hates everybody. I don't want anything close to that situation to emerge here in Russia. So therefore, migration has to be strictly controlled, but same time approachable. Approachable enough, right? So that all those are potentially millions of families in the Western world that are not okay with insanity and the madness that is being normalized in the West, so that those families will migrate to Russia and will bring and benefit massively Russian society, Russian Federation, because we need more people, obviously, and they will bring with them also. By the way, let's keep in mind these people are hard-working, law-obeying people, many of them who has a great deal of expertise in different fields, so they will bring all their knowledge too, which is great, man. So it's a win-win situation. These families will finally have a home where normality is welcomed, right? And also they will be, active, successful members of the society. So everyone wins. So good that this particular family resolved all the issues, and hopefully, soon they're gonna become Russian citizens, man. Why for 10 years they did not already ask for citizenship, man? But who is talking, right? I did not ask for citizenship for like 11 years. Me and my family, when we run away from Saakashvili's controlled territory, regime controlled territory, there in Georgia, we end up in Russia in 2009, right? And we received Russian citizenship only in 2021. Until that moment, I personally was a stateless, right? Because Saakashvili personally took my citizenship. They faked my personal data and took my citizenship away. Saakashvili himself signed the decree, and yes, none of my family members had Russian citizenship either. And only in 2021 we actually received the citizenship. So one of the reasons why I did not ask for citizenship before was that I had no nerves, by the way, to deal with the bureaucracy. Honestly, man, that was one of the reasons why I was delaying that step. Not the only reason, but one of the reasons. I just had no nerves, man, to deal with bureaucracy. And actually, it turned out quite well, man. I was expecting much worse treatment from their bureaucracy than I get. So things are improving, Things are improving, and migration institutions now are much better than they were like 10 years ago and 15 years ago. But still, man, bureaucracy is bureaucracy. No one likes it, no matter what, isn't it? I guess even bureaucrats themselves don't like bureaucracy. So that's about it, dear friends, for a new segment. In case you like their program, please indicate that, click that like button, leave some commentary, right? Share link with your friends, or at least share the information that my channel exists, right? And now let's have a little community chat. What you will say? Uh, let's have a little community chat. And first difference, I will highlight. You know what? I will highlight these comments that I receive through Boosty and PayPal. And so, thank you very much, Mr. X, if you are online now. And if you are not, maybe some members will let you know that I'm thankful for your donation on True Boosty platform. And you had several comments same time, so I will highlight all of them. And Mr. X is commented, I missed your live stream, lazy Sunday for me as far as Turkey and Erdogan is concerned. I've been saying it for a while. Erdogan cannot be trusted, cut off all energy supply to Turkey, impose sanctions. Well, Erdogan cannot be trusted. 100% agree with you. Sanctions on Turkey, if they continue to mess around there, they might actually end up facing some sanctions from Russian Federation, for sure. I don't know about cutting energy because Russia did not cut energy supplies to European countries. So I don't think Russia will cut energy supplies to Turkey no matter what, at least under the current leadership, right? But I can understand your point there 100%. It makes sense. Makes sense. You cannot tolerate irrational behavior or hostile, especially hostile behavior from anybody, especially in these times when dozens of NATO countries are already directly engaged in a war with us, right? So also, Mr. X is commenting. So Kushner and Witkov are heading to Moscow to hand Putin new sanctions. Trump and Congress just imposed on Putin, Russia, and other officials. At what point Putin stops embarrassing Russia? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I hope he will not meet with the Witkov and Kushner. I really hope so, man, because that will be seen as an embarrassment by whole world. I think. I hope he will not meet with Kushner. That's all I can say. But he's an old man, isn't it? He's an old man, and when you are in age, I myself is not really as young as I would like. I'm almost 50, by the way. And it is difficult for me now to change my mind on something, right? I need not just one, not just two, but many indicators, many reasons to redact my own takes on certain directions, right? To redact my own reading of the big picture. And I guess it's even more difficult to redact your own takes on certain topics when you are 70. And Putin is like 73 or something, right? So, you know, is it even possible to change his mind now on anything? I don't know. I'm not sure about it. And clearly, there is nobody in his inner circle bold enough, right, to tell him that. I mean, this is embarrassing, man. This is embarrassing. Many steps that he takes is literally embarrassing. But there is nobody there in Putin's inner circle to tell him this, right? They all are fried. There's only yes people around Putin, right? As it is the case in US, there is only yes people around Trump, you know? And that's always bad. This is never good, man. Nothing good comes out of the situations when there is only yes people around you, because you are at point moment you end up in that situation, you are losing touch with reality. That's how it is. You should never create barriers between you and the real world, right? And you should always be able to receive criticism, right? To hear criticism, because no one is perfect. Literally, no one is freaking perfect, right? Everyone makes mistakes, no matter who you are and what position do you hold. Everyone makes mistakes, So, yeah, thank you. And there are more comments from Mr. X, dear friends. But before I will get to more comments, let me highlight that there was a donation from Mark, donation of $9 through PayPal. Thank you very much, Mark, for yesterday's donation through PayPal. Unfortunately, like I see this Anna PayPal account is my wife's account, so Anna received a message about donation when I was no longer online, and I could not highlight this yesterday, but I will highlight your question today. And question: now that Russia has closed the Black Sea and no commercial traffic is passing through by its side, what is the effect on the Russian economy? We hear in the West the Russian economy is collapsing, which we know it's a lie. Well, Russia imposed maritime blockade on the Kyiv regime, and at this point, Mark, I'm not quite sure this maritime blockade still stands, because in past 48 hours there were not a single report about a vessel being struck. Right, so either no more vessels are attempting to reach ports that are controlled by Kyiv regime, either on the Danube or in Odessa and Nikolaev region, or maybe there are vessels that want to reach those ports or leave those ports, and the Russian militaries and their security services receive order from Kremlin not to target. I don't know which one is, but I see no reports about a single vessel being struck in the past 48 hours. There was a large-scale strikes yesterday in Odessa region on military and logistical infrastructure of the Kyiv regime, but not a single strike on a vessel. And I remind you, Turkey, after restricting navigation through Dardanelles and Bosphorus, which was basically restriction on Russian civilian navigation first and foremost. After that, Turkey came up with initiative of maritime ceasefire, right? And maybe behind the closed doors, Moscow actually agree on that or something. I don't know. If throughout the day today or tomorrow we will have some new videos, new reports about additional strikes on the vessels that will attempt to enter Kyiv controlled ports or leave, then I will say Moscow 100% rejected this globalist initiative of maritime ceasefire that came from a Turkish side, but it was a globalist initiative. But as of now, I cannot say it for sure. And when it comes to economical harm for Russia, well, globalist control regimes in Europe and their Ukrainian proxies for at least last 2 months were actively targeting civilian navigation in Azov Sea. I was reporting about it. Up to 200 vessels were struck, by the way. Scale of damage is unknown to me. Some vessels probably were damaged significantly. Some others just received minor damage. But according to reports, up to 200 vessels were struck, mostly in Azov Sea, and there's some in Black Sea. Moscow retaliated on that while imposing this maritime blockade, right, on a Kyiv-controlled territory. So therefore, Russian maritime blockade is a retaliation, and basically civilian navigation, commercial navigation in the Black Sea and the Azov Sea is already on such a low level that impact on the Russian economy is bare minimum at this point. Russian Transport Ministry already made clear, like several weeks ago, that they are redirecting logistical lines now from Azov Sea to other directions, right? Uh, to continue export import operations with more safe environments. So therefore, right now, maybe only vessels that are coming in or out of Russian ports are vessels that are operating in economical or financial interests of other countries more than necessarily, than Russia. For example, oil tankers are leaving CPC terminal in what is the name, man? Novorossiysk, right? This is Kazakhstan oil. Of course, Russia will get some profits out of it for territory being used for services, this and that. But main profiteer is Kazakhstan and America, right? That tankers still being loaded in a CPC terminal. When it comes to vessels that are coming to Russian ports from Turkey, for example, this is a Turkish economical interest. They are bringing their freaking goods to sell on the Russian market. And trust me, we will be probably better off without Turkish produce. I think we don't really need that. So, I mean, will we suffer if there will be no more Turkish, there will be no more import products from Turkey? No, man, we would not notice. Honest. We just would not freaking won't notice that. Turkey will suffer, yeah, because the Russian market is a major market for Turkish economy. But Russia can survive without Turkish imports of anything, from produce to clothes to whatever, man. They don't produce anything that we actually need, and we cannot produce either on our own or import from other side, other countries. So economical impact due to this terrorist activity of Western ruling class in the Azov Sea and the West, and the Black Sea, and their Ukrainian proxies is significanter, especially because Crimea suffered big time, right? Crimea suffered big time. Situation is improving step by step, but impact on Crimea was especially big, right? But it's manageable. It's manageable, and of course, situation is nowhere close to be. I mean, collapse is a very, very strong word, man. All these long-range attacks on the Russian Federation is just scratching the surface of Russian economy. I think I will be very precise enough while saying so. All these long-range attacks on the Russian Federation, including in the Azov Sea, Black Sea, is just a scratch on the surface of Russian economy. So you be the judge how effective those attacks are and if Russian economy is on the verge of collapse. Of course not. Of course not. Western propaganda can say anything, man. If you believe Western propaganda, Russian economy should collapse in 2022 already, 2023 also, at least several times, then in 2024 also, another dozen of times, 2025 too, and right now we should not have any economy at all. But somehow none of it happened, right? So don't take Western propaganda seriously, man. They are just in different universe, clearly. They don't even care nowadays, right, or what they are writing or what they are saying. Anything anti-Russian goes, man. I mean, just say it. No one cares. And no one is checking those Western propaganda outlets. Also, as I said, there were more comments from Mr. X from boosting Let me highlight here. How about Putin imposing sanctions on Trump, Kushner, Witkoff, Rubio, and the other criminals in the US? You can throw in Erdogan while you're at it. Putin has their tools. He needs spying to use them. And yes, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you. We should use our tools to bring Western ruling class to their senses, including Trump and his administration and their forces that are behind them, right? And that is Western ruling class. That's how we call it. We should use our tools to put Ankara in check, for sure. Turkey should never even think about challenging Russia because, well, and by the way, just for record, there were many wars between Turkey and Russia. Turkey lost them all, literally. Turkey lost them all. So, it does not take much for Moscow to keep Ankara in check. But you have to want it, right? If Moscow is not interested, then yeah. But if Moscow isn't interested, it would not take much to bring Turkish ruling class or ruling political class into their senses and show them where their place is, actually. Also, Mr. X is commenting, Iran is wasting too much time negotiating with Oman, and they're talking about possible deals with the US. They should be talking to Russia, China about economic deals and the weapons from Russia instead. Oh, they do that. They actually already finalized their negotiations with their Muscat. I shared in my previous programs agreements that were actually reached between Iran and Oman in terms of navigation through Hormuz Strait, according to agreement that they have already reached, and their implementation is their next step. But of course, that might be possible probably after this war ends. But anyways, fundamental agreement is being reached, and whatever vessels will want to enter Persian Gulf will use northern maritime route through Iranian territorial waters and will pay fees. And whichever vessel will leave Persian Gulf will use southern traffic route, which goes through Omani territorial waters and will pay fees there in Oman. But either way, profits from this traffic, from these fees, will be split 50-50 between the sides. So Iran and Oman have no issues, really, have no massive issues anyways, right? When it comes to deals with US, Iran is just responding. If you notice, Iran is always responding. It's Washington that, for sake of gaining some time, buying some time, it's always Washington that comes up with some initiative, and Iran, for sake of politics, for sake of diplomacy, right, and image, Iran usually responds, right? Okay, you want to talk? Let's talk. Through intermediaries, through this to that, but Iran, I mean, diplomats cannot close the door for negotiations. So we should not expect a Basaracchi or any other Iranian diplomat to say, you know what, no, we are not talking to nobody. It does not work that way, isn't it? Their job is literally to talk to their counterparts from different countries, including from hostile countries, right? So they have to do their job. Thing is that I don't think anybody in Tehran actually believes that US is serious with these negotiations. So Iran is responding on certain messages from the US, from the West, but same time they are preparing very actively for inevitable, as it seems to be, next phase of a war, which will include ground invasion of Iran, right? So Iran is preparing, and I'm quite sure they are in talks with Russia, with China, with a number of other countries, with North Korea, for example. And I'm quite sure they are not just in talks, but they already are receiving weapons that they need and some other assistance. So I think Tehran is doing, if we judge, right, uh, U.S. ruling class and the Iranian ruling class, well, the Iranian ruling class is clearly on top right now. Always, there is always room more to be done. Same time, of course, but I think you know Tehran is doing quite well as of now. But unfortunately, uh, unless Moscow and Beijing, together or separately, will take stand against Western ruling class and will send clear message that you attack Iran, uh, we will retaliate, or at least if you attack Iran with the nukes, we will retaliate with the nukes. Unless such a stand is being taken, I'm afraid they're going to be next phase of a war against Iran, and there is a high probability that US will deploy nukes. It would not help Western ruling class. It would not help Western ruling class to achieve its goals, either in the Middle Eastern chapter of their strategy or in terms of their global strategy. But they might go for it anyways. You know. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. X, for your comments through Boosty. I hope many members of our community will follow your example and will send some messages, comments, questions through Boosty. They will support my work, and same time they will make this community chat part of their live streams after the news segment also more diverse and informative. Thank you very much. Also, I want to highlight, dear friends, that there was today, early in the day, there was a $3 donation from Michael through PayPal. So, Michael, if you are watching, thank you very much for your donation through PayPal early today. Thank you. And now, dear friends, now let me react on super chats from Rumble. There was quite a number of super chats from Wayward Husband. Today, super chats are only from Wayward. Maybe we'll have super chats from other members too. Let's see. But I will react now on the super chats from Wayward, and let's start from this one. With these ones, thank you very much, Wayward, for your super chats on Rumble and for your donations with these super chats. And let's go through them. So, Wayward is commenting, I suspect Putin has caved once again. I could be wrong, but given Putin's history of avoiding confrontation, I would not put it past him. Well, if you are talking about possible ease of pressure on the Kyiv regime in terms of maritime blockade, I'm afraid, yeah, there is a probability of that. Let's see if today or tomorrow or day after, if there are going to be no more reports about any strikes on vessels that are attempting to enter ports in a Kyiv controlled territory, then that will be quite a clear indicator that probably Russian militaries and their security services were ordered by Kremlin to no longer attack those vessels. We will see. But I will not be surprised either if Putin actually ordered to ease the pressure in terms of this maritime blockade. Also, we were just commenting, Russia has Erdogan by their balls. Putin should cut off all energy supplies to Turkey and impose sanctions. Also, transfer weapons to Kurds in Syria. This will cut Erdogan's This will deter Erdogan's attention. Let me check, am I reading correctly? This will get Erdogan's attention, and well, Putin not gonna do none of it, isn't it, Wayward? You know it, I know it. He's not gonna do any of it. So therefore, yeah, maybe some other time when Russia will have a different leadership, or if any one country will behave hostile, they will get treatment, deserved treatment. But well, as you yourself mentioned, Putin is known for his extremely diplomatic, to put it mildly, ways of dealing with his Western partners and the rest, right? So therefore, he's not. I don't think he's gonna escalate with Turkey. Probably he will prefer to cut deal and de-escalate, not really. Yet again, let's see next several days if there is no more attacks on vessels that will enter territorial waters of Ukraine. Then we know what happened. Then we will know what happened. Also, there were more comments from Wayward. Another one is this: the rule of thumb is if they are talking about weapons transferred to Ukraine, that means those weapons were already transferred to Ukraine. A weak response from Russia will be viewed as a green light, and I agree with you. I think so too, that those weapons are a significant portion, maybe not all of it, because it's it's tens of thousands of shells, dozens of missiles, about a dozen launchers, a lot of weapons, right? That Turkey will provide, Turkey will transfer to Ukraine, so Turkey regime. So maybe not all of it is being already transferred, but I think some of it, yes, already being transferred to Western-backed terrorist and Nazi regime in Ukraine. And as of now, there was no response from Moscow, none at all, right? I will check after this live stream, and of course, I will monitor the situation. Maybe Kremlin will react tomorrow or something. And if there will be some reaction, at least some reaction, I will share information about it. But as of now, believe it or not, but I have not seen single report about any reaction from Kremlin whatsoever on these reports about Turkey transferring a lot of weapons to the regime. Another super chats from Wayward. That's interesting. Okay. So it seems Putin does not unsafe how offensive works. Is allowing NATO to rearm to then launch an ever bigger attack on Russia. Unfortunately, it will be the average Russian citizen who will pay. Well, I think I have said basically everything on the matter of this restraint policy that Moscow is implementing. And also, Wayward is commenting, Putin does not understand is what meant how offensive offense works. It's kind of saying maybe he understands. Maybe he understands what is and maybe he knows what is need to be done, but he just don't wants to escalate with the Western ruling class for whatever reasons, right? Maybe for his personal safety reasons or safety of his family members. Who knows? Maybe he's being blackmailed, by the way, that if he does certain thinks U.S. British intelligence services will go after his family members or something, or maybe after him personally. We don't know. There are certain policies that Putin is implementing that no one understands, right? For nobody makes any sense, including this restraint policy. But there have to be some explanation for it, right? We don't know. We can only speculate what actual reasons are, but you know, maybe he knows what needs to be done, but he's not doing it because either he's afraid of something, or I don't know. I don't know what to say, man. I just don't know. You know, or maybe he truly does not understand. Also can be case, man, because yet again, he's not a genius, isn't it? He's not a genius, not even close. Am I correct? Um, as I am not genius, and not even close, right? There are maybe a few geniuses right now in this planet, and neither Putin, neither me uh, are among them. That's for sure. So maybe he just has no freaking idea what's up, right, and what is need to be done. Maybe. I'm big time disappointed. I'm disappointed beyond anything, man. Right? I was never his supporter, you know it, but I never expect him to be this weaker leader when it comes to wartime. I, if someone told me like 5 years ago that soon this high intensity conflict will be gone and NATO countries will get engaged directly and will strike Russia on daily basis, kill Russian citizens on daily basis, and will destroy Russian infrastructure on daily basis, and Putin will never ever authorize militaries and security services to retaliate on the collective West countries, on these attacking countries, and to restore the terrorists. I would struggle to believe that. Even though I was never his supporter of Putin, but still, man, if 5 years ago someone told me what's going on right now, I would struggle to believe that this can be. But yeah, I mean, it's happening, right? For a very, very long time now, and I don't understand why. It makes no sense, man. Just makes no sense. Um, Nidish is commenting, Levan, so you don't expect any spies entering from the West in the name of migration? I expect, of course, I expect that Western secret services will try to infiltrate Russia. I mean, easy if they have a lack of spies in Russia, by the way. They have a massive fifth column. Let's be real here. They have a massive freaking fifth column, and one of the reasons why Kremlin is still messing around with this restraint policy might be exactly that fifth column, right? That is extremely influential. So, Nidish, let's not paint the picture that Western ruling class has no assets here in Russia. They have assets, a lot of them, right? Since the 90s, right? A lot of assets, man. They have, but same time they might send more spies. They will try to infiltrate further if there will be big migration processes. Of course they will try, and for God's sake, man, why on earth we have a counterintelligence service? Nidish, why on earth we have a counterintelligence service? It's their job to control, right? To control activity of the foreign intelligence agencies and their assets. So they should do their job, man. Right? They should just do their freaking job. Just because there is a risk that West might try to, infiltrate Russia with the spies, you're not gonna shut down the freaking border, isn't it? And seal off your country entirely from the rest of the world. It's insane. So of course there will be attempts to infiltrate Russia. Of course. And let the counterintelligence service do its job and catch those spies those assets, foreign assets, and put them in taiga, by the way, to warm up the air for the rest of their freaking lives. That's what I think about that. Let's continue with the more. Let's continue with the more super chats. Wayward is also commenting. So Kushner and Witkoff are going back to Moscow to hand Putin their new sanctions. Congress just I already read this, isn't it? I already reacted on this. Okay, then this one. Once again, thank you very much. For your super chats, and there is a few more super chats from Wayward. Putin seems to think that by taking no preemptive steps against NATO now, that somehow new leadership in the West will come to see their error of the ways. The elites have no reverse gear. The new, well, I think I have nothing to add to this comment, really. And you know what, Wayward? I think Putin, one of the reasons why Putin is not escalating with their Western ruling class, with their retaliatory strikes that are absolutely necessary if you want to restore deterrent with the collective West, is that maybe, as I have highlighted a few times before, maybe he wants to leave some space for possible, bridges to be built between Western countries and Russia, European, for example, NATO member states and Russia after this conflict. And the reason for that could be that maybe Moscow just afraid to be alone with China, right? Maybe they want some counterbalancer. Maybe they want Europe to exist as a sort of a counterbalance. Could be case, right? Could be case, but same time, I don't know, man. If this is the reasoning, I cannot know, obviously, if this is the reasoning why Moscow is so cautious when it comes to Western ruling class. And I think even as a counterbalance, Europe wouldn't work. Europe is destined for a total collapse, by the way. In 20, 30 years from now, you wouldn't be able to recognize Europe. Right? That's why I expect massive wave of migration from European countries too, towards Russia included. And so if anybody in Russian leadership thinks that Europe can be any sort of a counterbalance in regards to China, yeah, they are mistaken. Europe is finished, literally finished, man. Majority in Europe does not understand that now. Will understand only when it will be too late. Well, it is too late, actually, if we are brutally honest. But this might be the reason, yeah, theoretically speaking, that Putin just don't want Russia to be one-on-one with China. But you know what? With or without Europe, Russia is not alone with China, because there is India, by the way, right? And if anything, I think Moscow should be focused on building further enhancing strategical relationships, partnerships with India, not with Europe, but with India. Because both of us, none of us, neither Russia, neither India, wants to end up alone with China, right? So we are natural allies. Plus, we have a great deal of history, right, of cooperation and assistance of each other. So that's what should be focused, by the way. India, global south, not the Europe, because Europe is finished, man. It's just a matter of 20, 30 years. And that's it. Europe is done. Nothing can help them now, right? And, as I said, man, we should leave door open for migrants, and we should make bureaucracy approachable, more easily approachable, right? So that these millions of families that will decide they want to migrate to place where normality is welcomed, or they will choose Russia to migrate and they will come here and there they will join community, society, and become a strength of Russia and strength of Russian society, right? Because I believe that is going to be the case, 100%. Also, we were just commenting the new security pact between Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan is clearly aimed at Iran. This pact would not have happened without encouragement from the US. They think that Iran will do nothing. However, I have to disagree on that with you. I have to disagree because I think this is a natural reaction of the regional countries on their extremely aggressive behavior of the Zionists and their Zionist Israel and their Western allies, right? US first and foremost. They are threatening whole region, practically whole region, right? So it is only natural if these regional countries, no matter how much they are influenced by the Western countries, but still, it's only natural if local elites in these countries will seek some sort of architecture, new architecture that will be used to protect them, right? And their countries, essentially. So I think this is a natural processes that are taking place as a response on it again extremely aggressive policies and actions of Zionist aggressive and reckless and criminal actions and their policies of Zionist Israel and their Western allies, US included. So I don't think this is against Iran. Iran might join this pact. Iran might join this pact because, yet again, I don't think this is about sectarian differences or sectarian alignments. This bloc. I think it's about containing Zionists and their allies more. Because let's be real, man, Middle Eastern local elites in the Middle East, they all understand that previous security architecture is finished because they were heavily relying on US for their security, and they realized in the past number of months since this second war, since US and Israel launched second war against Iran, they realized that actually US presence is a danger for them. It's not a security for them, but danger. And obviously, they have good reasons to seek alternative architecture, security architecture. So therefore, I don't think this is necessarily Western idea, but I'm quite sure Western ruling class will try to infiltrate this organization and make it impotent, as they did with the BRICS. And unfortunately, they have enough tools to potentially pull off that trick. They will infiltrate this organization and will make it impotent. They succeeded to do so with the BRICS, isn't it? And for the last 2 years, BRICS is kind of dead. Do they do anything whatsoever? So that's a whole different story, what West will do. But I don't think our initiative itself is coming from the West to create this alliance. We will find out. Soon we're going to have more information so that our judgment will be better. And also, we were just commenting, but unlike Putin, Iran has shown it has no problem attacking aggressor states. They will eventually try to bring in Oman, UAE, that organization. Iran itself will join. I think Iran itself will join. And if you check, there was like about 2-3 months ago when Saudi and Pakistan first signed up for a deal, this mutual protection pact, basically, let's call it that, because that's what it is, right? I believe Iran made it statement, Iranian officials made it clear straight away that they would like to join this alliance. you know. So, and when it comes to UAE, I think UAE, uh, there is very little chance that UAE will survive, man, on the political map, will remain on the political map in a way we know it, right? The UAE is destined for disintegration. They made too many mistakes. They made too many strategical miscalculations. So therefore, in 3 to 5 years time from now, I don't see UAE in a current form on the political map. But if Riyadh will not behave, then Saudi existence of Saudi Arabia in modern form will be also questioned. Thank you very much, Waywarder. Thank you very much for your super chats. Oh, you see, there are two more super chats, by the way. I almost missed this. Huh. Good that I checked. There are two more super chats from Wayward. So let me highlight these two, dear friends. And so thank you, Wayward, for your super chats and donations through these super chats on Rumble. Wayward is commenting, unfortunately, Putin has created a box for himself and Russia. He has allowed so many acts of war against Russia to go unanswered that the West feels it can literally get away with their murder. And yes, unfortunately, this is true. I think that's exactly what is going on. And Putin cornered himself, yes, with his restraint policies. I think so too, that he cornered himself now, and I'm not sure he knows what is the best way out of that corner, if any. And Western ruling class, as you said, probably thinks they can get away with literally anything. Anything. And they are and Western elites behave like that too. I mean, they are not even trying to hide their attitude, you know. And also, we were just commenting, I think you are wrong on this one, Warner. This new alliance is not aimed at Israel, is aimed at Iran. Remember, who controls all these states in the Middle East? US. It would not be uh, done without US. It would not happen without US. We were just commenting, and well, let's allow ourselves to agree to disagree on this point. Mostly, whenever you share your opinions on different geopolitical topics, mostly we are on the same page. But on this one, I still think this will might be some result of some self-preservation instinct of the Middle Eastern countries, right? While they seeing this extremely aggressive behavior from the Zionists and their allies. But yet again, my reading on the big picture could be wrong. I will acknowledge that. So if I will see indicators that clearly this is Western ruling class is messing around with this act or pact, of course I will acknowledge that, of course. But for now, I definitely need more information, and at least I want to hope that this is something of original creation of the Middle Eastern countries, right? Because they need to come up with alternative security architecture. They just need to do this because existing one is not working. It's actually endangering them, right? Because they were heavily relying on U.S. protection, on presence of U.S. in the region, presence of other NATO member states. People are forgetting that France, UK, they have a massive presence too. in the Middle East, maybe not on the scale of US, but they still have a big presence there. And now Middle Eastern countries are realizing that they were wrong. And presence of these NATO countries is actually danger for them instead of security. Anyways, thank you very much, Wayward, for sharing your opinion, for your support and attention, and for your super chats on Rumble. Thank you very much. And dear friends, that's about it for today's program. Almost 3 hours, 2 hour and 45 minutes. Not bad. Not bad, I think. Right. Let me check once again to make sure I did not miss no question or the comment from members of community. Let me check Boosty. Right now, Boosty does not show, sir, neither new members joining. Unfortunately, our Boosty community is still only 13 members, and there are no messages about new. There are no indicators about new messages. And let me check Patreon, by the way. Maybe we have a new member on Patreon, new supporter. No, that's unfortunate. But yeah, maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Thank you very much, dear friends, for your time and attention. Have a wonderful day and take care. Bye for now.